I have only one question. One simple question. Can I complete the entirety of the current Trackmania campaign while only driving backwards? The game is too easy forwards, let's be honest. We need a challenge, and here it is. 25 tracks of increasing difficulty, and we are here to conquer them. Backwards. Only one rule, I cannot accelerate forwards. The rest of the game is the same. Get from the start to the finish while passing all the checkpoints. Before I start, let's put a prediction in the comment section if you think this will be smooth and easy or if it's going to be impossible. Also, I want to do this series for every new campaign coming out, so subscribe for more shenanigans like this. Okay, so without further ado, let's jump into map 1. This map was really straightforward, but I immediately noticed how annoying every single one of the starting blocks were going to be. But other than that, smooth sailing to the finish. On map 2, the starting blocks already became a problem, as it was rounded off, and actually too small to just go backwards and turn. But I found this weird mechanic where if you tap brake very fast, the car goes kind of sideways without turning the car, and this gave me enough room to turn on the block. This mechanic was a godsend because I used it on every single starting block like this, and there's many. The rest of the map was super straightforward, so let's continue. Map 3 and Map 4 had exactly the same problem as Map 2. Annoying starting block, but otherwise no obstacles, we could just drive into the finish. The last map of the White series, Map 5, was also pretty smooth sailing, but it was the first time I encountered the fact that every time the game puts me in a forced Cam 3, which is the internal cockpit view, I was not going to be able to see where I was going. Not the biggest issue on Map 5, but I knew this was gonna be a problem for sure. The Green series starts off with Map 6. This map looks overall like it won't be a challenge, till you see the ending of the map. It consists of a very far jump into a finish ring, which can only be accessed from this jump. Undeterred, I drove through the map. I gathered as much speed as I possibly could, and it was barely enough to make it like halfway to the finish. So that was not gonna work. I tried to jump from multiple angles. I tried slamming myself into the side of the road to bounce. I tried getting more speed. Nothing worked. But what if I tell you I found a way to do it? What I realized is that my rule was that I cannot accelerate forwards. So the idea of getting a good turnaround, hitting the boosters while forwards rolling, and then flying, maybe that would do the trick. And what do you know? It was still not enough. I needed even more height. My very last option was to find something I could bounce on. Something that could propel me that tiny little extra height that I needed. And if we take a look towards the finish, there it was. This tiny little ledge. Because the car flies off the dirt block at an angle, I can air brake as soon as I'm in the air and hit the bottom of my car on the ledge and pray to Hylas that it would be enough to get into the finish. I kid you not. I did this for 2 hours straight before I finally got the lucky bounce that made my car fly into the finish. And here it is, the final jump in all its glory. After this map, I was sure the rest of the challenge would be easy. Surely the hardest map was now conquered. So I continued, happily unaware of the rest of the challenge to come. Map 7 was nothing but a few turns, but I did get reminded of the fact that if you drive over a reactor boost block, the boost you get depends on which direction you drive over it. So for the rest of the challenge, all the reactor boosts I would collect would give me the opposite direction reactor. So if the block would push me down to the ground, it would now push me up in the air and make me hover, and vice versa. Map 8 is a simple multi-lap with no real obstacles, but I did immediately notice that driving the map in reverse order was faster. Since in Trackmania, the order of which you collect the checkpoints does not matter. All that matters is that you collect them all before you enter the finish, or in this case, the initiate other lap goal thing. Map 9 was interesting because it would heavily feature the plastic surface. This surface is pretty slippery, so you slide around a lot. This gives me a great opportunity to tell you guys about what is probably the most crucial mechanic when driving backwards, and that is speed sliding. For whatever reason, when you drive backwards and slide with certain angles, your car accelerates backwards way faster than it would otherwise. Therefore, in any and all circumstances, unless I drive like really slow, when I drive backwards, I will try to see if I can slide to increase my speed. This became unbelievably important in Map 10. Here, if we take a quick overview of the ending, there's this uphill with a long straight afterwards into the finish. doesn't look too bad, until you notice that at the start of this uphill, there's an engine off block. And as you might have guessed, that means I have no way to accelerate after this point. I drove through the map without issue, but as I approached the ending, I simply did not have enough speed to make it to the finish. I tried looking for alternative routes, bouncing around the engine off, trying to skip it somehow, but to no success. There was only one option, and it was to find some way to gather enough speed to cross this huge section with no engine. And there was a way. These 2 turns were huge, and I needed to utilize that. The first turn had a water section conveniently placed right next to it, and Virtual, my roommate, had the idea to get wet wheels because this lowers the grip of your car, so this can extend the first drift and subsequently I get more speed. But this wasn't enough. This small grass patch was also conveniently positioned right on the side of the track, and I could use this to engage another slide through the checkpoint and towards the 180 turn. And finally, the last turn could be taken wide with a very specific drift angle. All this put together in one run could produce enough speed to jump to the finish. I attempted this for what seemed to be an absolute eternity, but it was actually more like an hour. And then I got this run. Oh, please. Is this enough? Oh, I think this is enough. Let's go, dude. Please be enough. Oh my god, let's go. Very nice. Awesome. Surely the worst was over. This had to be it. And it certainly felt like it. Map 11, 12, and 13 came and went like nothing. So fast. To be fair, it was super tedious because it was slow, but at least easy. Map 14 was probably the map I was the most worried about going into this challenge. This map consists of multiple wall rides, and not only that, they're accompanied by these reactor boosters, and as explained earlier, these reactor boosters will not give you the appropriate direction of boost intended to finish this map. Not only that, I'm doing it backwards as well. This map was an absolute beast to engage, but I sat down and tried multiple different approaches, so let's start from the beginning. My first attempts, I just tried to survive the start and gather speed towards this first uphill wall ride after the second checkpoint. Immediately it was obvious that this was a crazy speed check, and after many attempts, I finally found a setup that seemed to just barely generate enough speed to make it up the wall. What I had to do was from the very first drop down, I landed in a speed drift, held that throughout the turn, landed in another speed drift going up this hill, and finally managed to catch just enough airtime to initiate a third speed drift that I held all the way to the wall ride. This all collectively generated just barely enough speed to make the wall ride, and I finally could attempt the next section of the map. Now the challenge was to gather enough speed for the second wall ride. Luckily, if you accelerate on the slanted section, you can jump to the next checkpoint, land in a small speed drift, jump into another drift, and that gives you just enough speed for the wall ride. But what I quickly discovered was that the true test was not the wall ride here, it was the ending. You see, the ending consists of not one, but 2 separate loops. There's no real way to gather enough speed after the wall ride, so on many attempts, I ended up stuck on the last loop, right next to the finish. But I could see it wasn't impossible. I got so close so many times, and I knew it was just a tiny bit more speed, and that would do the trick. And finally, I managed to do it. And in the middle of the night, on one of my grind attempts offline, I got it. What do you mean? Okay. It worked. It worked. Yes. Oh my god. This was such a great accomplishment feeling, and it really remotivated me to grind the rest of the challenge. So I finished up map 15, the last map of the Blue series, the same night without any trouble, as it had no major obstacles, and then went to bed. Map 16 started off the Red series, and this map had 3 points of interest that I had in my mind for potential problems. The first was this engine off at the start, the second was this gap right here, and lastly, this jump into the last section of the map. Conveniently, the first engine off is skippable if you just drive on the scenery. Quite lucky, but I'll take it. Even more lucky is that the developers chose to make this jump fail-proof, as they added a pool of water here instead of just making it a jump. So even with the next to no speed my car had, I was able to continue my run. I was able to gather quite a lot of speed on the downhill and the subsequent dirt section, enough to cross the gap barely. And now, there was only one final jump that stood in my way. By some miracle though, the speed you gather seems to be just barely enough to make the jump and drive into the finish. This map truly felt like somebody in the development team backwards secured the map because the speeds felt so perfect that you could just barely make it. 17 is another multi-lap map, nothing special and no obstacles, just a nice backwards cruise to the finish. On 18, I realized something truly incredible, but at the same time something I would hate myself for not realizing earlier. I had so much trouble with this wall ride because the game puts you in forced cam 3, the cockpit view, so I could not see where I went and I kept missing the checkpoint afterwards. Me, in my infinite wisdom, forgot that there technically is a rear view keybind that is unbound by default, but yet it does exist in the game. If you hold down this keybind while in the forced cockpit view, it is possible to see where you're going. I cannot believe I didn't think of this earlier. The absolute trauma that the end of map 14 gave me from driving without seeing anything for so long could have been at the very least made easier if I just had realized this earlier. But oh well, with this newfound knowledge, I was able to quite easily conquer map 18. No real obstacles on this map. But I must say that this was one of my favorite maps to drive backwards, as it's fast-paced and smooth and it's just a great map. 19 was a spooky map to go into. The gimmick of this map is that it consists almost entirely of engine off sections. Here, 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 and here. To my unbelievable surprise, the map actually worked perfectly. It wasn't even too bad. It was lucky that the few sections without engine off are driven on the plastic surface though. A surface where speed drifting and gathering that speed is a lot easier. If it was regular tarmac, this map would most likely not have been possible. Map 20. This map is notorious for its difficult ice slides. What I was scared about was this. This huge uphill consisting of pure ice. I drove through the map and tried to gather speed wherever I could, but I wasn't able to climb the ice wall. This map left me stumped. Honestly, I did not know how to proceed. I needed more time to think, and in the meantime, I went onwards with the rest of the challenge. I wanted to challenge the last 5 maps of the campaign. The hardest maps, the Black Series. Map 21 kicks off the Black Series. This map is such a great map, known for its difficult author time. It was luckily easily driven backwards. It wasn't fast, but it got done. The second map of the Black Series, map 22, had a few obvious challenges. First and most notably is this huge jump into the first checkpoint. The second was this minor jump into the finish section. Dealing with the first problem, I was actually stumped again. I tried a few different things like gathering speed while down at the plastic or bouncing on the plastic to see if I could reach the checkpoint. It only dawned on me after I made a mistake and landed on the grass that the track actually connects with the stadium grass at a later point. And what do you know? This can actually be used to backtrack all the way to the first checkpoint. Another unbelievable convenient map design coming from Nadeo. After snacking up the first couple of checkpoints by backtracking the map, all I had to do was drive back again and continue the map. Luckily, the last little jump was easily overcome due to this plastic downhill generating more than enough speed to make it. Map 23 is a full dirt map. There's not much to say about this one, no real challenges to overcome, but the map does work surprisingly well backwards. Great map to drive. 24 had a few notable sections. There's these tiny gaps, and then there's this uphill at the sausage block with the reactor boost. It is just barely possible to make this first jump over the grass section. The uphill reactor climb was a little unintuitive, as you actually want to drive really slowly. This is because the reactor booster tries to hover your car, and if that happens, you end up flying off the track. But after figuring that out, the uphill was cleared without any major problems. The ending of the uphill was smooth sailing, and now there was only one map left. Map 25. The first challenge of map 25 was the very start. I had to gather enough speed to make it into this bobsleigh section. Really not as easy as it looks, but it's doable. After a smooth ride on the bobsleigh, I was faced with a familiar horror. Another slanted ice wall. Immediate flashbacks to map 20. And as much as I tried, with the many lines and hours of pathfinding and testing lines, these two maps eluded me. But there is hope. There is a mechanic in Trackmania where if you have more than 200 speed and drive backwards in a circle with skid marks, you generate speed. There might be a way to generate enough speed to make it up the hill in map 20. I was not able to do this. I tried. The 200 speed requirement to get this is what stopped me. I also tested map 25 in the map editor tool to see if it was possible after the wall ride, and indeed it is. So with this information, I challenge you. Try to see if you can finish them. I'll ditch out 50 American buccarinos for the first person to finish either map. So 50 for a replay file of map 20 and another 50 for a replay file of map 25. I'll post the runs in my Discord once they get sent to me. Thanks so much for watching. I'll have more fun challenges with this editing style in the future, so please do me an amazing favor and subscribe. I'm still a teeny tiny channel, so you're truly making a difference with every single subscription. Thank you, everyone. And thanks to my patrons for being way too loyal. Thank you, thank you, thank you.